Welcome to either Yabbing Unfiltered or F1 MSD. It's one of the two. Still trying to figure out the naming conventions. But this is going to be the championship breakdown before the final triple header of FIA Formula One 2024 championship season. I made this video before the most recent triple header, which was the Austin race, the Austin sprint race, Brazil sprint race, as well as the Mexico GP. Let's start off with the Austin GP. So, let's start off. Before we break down the championship and sort of what happened in it. So for the Austin sprint race, the top three were Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, as well as Lando Norris. And the final race for Austin was a forever iconic Ferrari 1-2 by Charles Leclerc winning the Austin GP with Carlos Sainz being P2, Max Verstappen P3, and Lando Norris in P4, which was amazing to say the least. Then was the Mexico GP, which brought us a lot of special moments. If you are a Ferrari fan, if not, well, get good, get in the bin. But this was Carlos Sainz's second victory of the season. Beautiful race. Anywho, Carlos Sainz P1, Lando Norris P2, Lando podium, Charles Leclerc P3, making this a Ferrari 1-3, a C2 podium, and Lando podium, or Charlos, if you want to call it that. And then Brazil. So, I have a video. The link should be in the description. But Brazil, the sprint race was won by Lando Norris. Followed P2 was Oscar Piastri. P3 was Max Verstappen, but he received a 5-second penalty for moving under the safety car for trying to overtake over the safety car, and as a result, got a 5-second penalty. And Leclerc came third. The actual race itself. I have a full breakdown. It was a disaster of a race, masterclass for Max Verstappen, but Max Verstappen took P1, which was not shocking. In the rain, that guy is a god. There is you cannot argue that, oh no, he's just bad. No, Max Verstappen is Max Verstappen for a reason. And a double podium for Alpine. Esteban Ocon getting P2 and Pierre Gasly getting P2. This is literally like a win for them. Ocon hasn't had a podium for 17 months. Gasly hasn't had a podium in 14 months. Literally more than a year. So amazing for them, happy for them. But disaster of a race. Anywho, now that we've gone over the race results, let's talk about the championship. This one... this one is gonna hurt because as much as in the last video we did a lot of breakdown of the math that could go behind Lando Norris winning the championship, and it still very much is something that he can get. It's difficult now because he came P6 in the last race, and if you guys don't know, P6 only gives you 8 points versus Verstappen, who gets 25 points. So it is difficult. It is doable, but yeah. Anywho, so currently, you know what? Let me share my screen. I think this would be an easier visualization as I discuss. Okay. Now, as we discuss the Drivers' Championship, currently Max Verstappen has 300 and... Hold on, let me open up my calculator because I don't want to do math. So currently Max Verstappen has 393 points, and Lando Norris has 331. That is a 62-point lead for the final three races, and there is a sprint race. I think all in all, there are, if you take There's 75 points just from the races themselves, and there are a potential of 8 more points because there's one more sprint race in Qatar. Charles Leclerc is P3 currently, and Oscar Piastri is P4, followed by Carlos Sainz, George Russell, Nico Hulkenberg, and Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon just shot up insane amount um, because of the most recent result. They were literally not in the points at all. They were not in the, well, they're still not in the top 10, but they were like near the bottom, near this category with Colapinto, Behrman. Honestly, Behrman is shocking, but we'll get to what it is. Anywho, let's talk about drivers. This is the one that's been highly argued, contested, whatever you want to say. Um, the main question everyone has is, can Lando Norris still win the championship? The answer is yes. Do I think he's going to win? No. I think it's see if it was Carlos, if it was Leclerc, if it was Hamilton, heck, even if it was Bottas or Fernando Alonso in the same car, I think they could do it. The problem that Lando Norris has is he does not have the drivers' championship because he was not ready to be in said position. No one expected McLaren. McLaren themselves did not expect this much of a close. Well, it was kind of a close fight between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Um, but a lot would need to happen for this to swing back into his favor. Um, Again, Austin. Sorry, not Austin. The next race is in around 17 days. Is the Vegas Grand Prix, and the Vegas Grand Prix, given the long straight that it has, we can actually just look at the track right now. F1 Vegas. Oh my God! Why does it look like that? Why does it look like that? Oh my God! Okay, so we can see here that the Vegas track is pretty okay. So it was introduced last year, so this is why Piastri has that record. Let me just preface by saying that it is 50 laps and it is around it's 6.2 kilometers. I'm not converting that to miles, but we can see that there are two DRS zones and there are two long straights for the circuit. McLaren and Ferrari are really good in long straights, which gives them a major advantage in this race. We can see there's a reason why Piastri holds this record. If you look at F1 Vegas, we're doing a whole deep dive into everything that could happen because we need to. We need to be hopeful. Yes, so we can see over here that the podium was in fact Max Verstappen, P1, which if you follow 23, he won almost every single goddamn race. Charles Leclerc P2, and third was Sergio Perez. Now, is the same thing going to happen this year? No. This year, the cars are very close to each other, and the Red Bull car is not in a place that suits both. It's not in a place that suits both Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen. It suits only Max Verstappen, which is why he has been struggling this season. There's no other way of putting it. He has been struggling this season. But anywho, getting back to the main point. Again, there's no sprint race. It's just a regular race. It is a night circuit. Ferrari and McLaren are predicted to do very well here. I'm expecting either a double Ferrari or a double McLaren podium if everything goes well without any accidents. Obviously, this time last year, Lando crashed as well as Carlos didn't crash, but because of a stupid decision by the FIA, he had to take a massive grid place penalty for replacing the floor of his car because of a pothole. Which, anyway, that's stupid. But I think either one of those four drivers or all three of the four of them will be on podium. Max Verstappen maybe, but again, it is very likely that he is not on this podium. What Lando Norris needs in this race is to obviously win this race, which is not going to be easy to do, especially when you have Ferrari right up their ass. But you can you hear me? Yo? Oh. But yeah, this is going to be a very important race for McLaren because currently it is as I mentioned, it's a 62-point lead. Max Verstappen will need to DNF and Lando would need to just gain 25 points or any number of points for this. He would just need to be ahead of Max Verstappen to win this race, to sort of chip away, at the 62-point gap. Is it possible? Yes. McLaren has shown that they can have a front grid lockout. They did the same thing in the sprint race in not in Austin, but in Brazil. Again, the rain really screwed things up, and it's going to be difficult. I mean, looking at this track. Then there's Qatar. Let's look at 2023 Qatar. Oh, 2023. 2023 Qatar. And obviously Max Verstappen won, but there was a McLaren 2-3. This is important because McLaren objectively has a better car this season, much better than Red Bull. And it could easily be a 1-2 for McLaren. So this lap is one to look out for. There's one long straight. This heavily favors both McLaren and Ferrari. I expect a Ferrari and a Red Bull, sorry, not a Red Bull, a Ferrari and McLaren to be here. You can never discount Max Verstappen because he's Max Verstappen. It is very possible for either one of them, to be honest, to just dominate this race. Either McLaren or Ferrari. And then you can't count on Max Verstappen. And this is also a sprint race. So it is very possible that Lando Norris would need to drive the drive of his life here. Because if Max Verstappen, let's say he gets P4 or P3 in the sprint race, that's like 3-4 points, not a lot. If he can get P1 and make sure Max Verstappen is not on the podium, that is a huge chunk of points in his, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember exactly how many points. Okay, yeah, so it's like 10 points, right? Let's say Max Verstappen gets 12, because with Ferrari being really fast and in contention, let's just say Max Verstappen comes 4, right? That's 13 points plus, that's like 16 points in his favor. If we're going by that math, currently it is a 62-point race. Let's subtract 16, that's 46. And there's still 50 points. 50 points. It's a stretch. But Lando Norris, we need to get fastest lap. Let's just subtract 2. That puts us at 44 points. He would need to win. If we divide this by 2, on average per race, he would need to get 22 points. He would need to win every single race, or for Max Verstappen to DNF every single race, which is not going to happen. So it's difficult, but it is something that he can do. You never know. Lewis Hamilton has done it in 2021 to tie it in. Hamilton did it in 21 to tie it with Verstappen. Well, get close to Verstappen. Verstappen did it in 22 to get up to Leclerc. And again, I think the FIA is really pushing Lando Norris to win. It just did not work out. In the wet, it was expected, but oh wow, this is a really tricky track. Okay. Again, see? Max Verstappen cannot be on this podium at all if they really want to win. See, the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm like, can he do it? Because it's 62 points, right? It's 25, 25, 25. let's just say out of the 62 points, right? Let's say Max Verstappen DNFs one race and Lando Norris is able to win. That's 37 points. Yeah, Max Verstappen would need to DNF in one race or not score points in order for it to be a really close battle again. Because let's go with the assumption again. Is this being overly hopeful and optimistic? Absolutely. There's no doubt in that. But it would be 37 points if he's able to win a race, which I think he can, and Max Verstappen does not get points. Now, let's say in a sprint race, usually McLaren has done really well in sprint races. They usually win them, except for Austin. So let's say that's another 4 points, 3 points. Let's go with 4, considering it's a fast. So it's 33 points in 2 races. That is something he can do. But again, Max Verstappen would need to DNF or not score points, which I don't see happening. So I think this is staying. If a major upset happens, Leclerc could get vice or second place. Again, not happening. This is interesting because 593 minus 557.
593 minus 5.
It is 36 points between McLaren and Ferrari. They both have insane cars. And if we're being honest with ourselves, Leclerc and Carlos Sainz are more talented than Norris and Oscar Piastri. They have more experience. They have more wins. Again, wins don't mean anything because there's so many gifted wins and safety cars and stuff like that. But again, let's look at Vegas, right? Vegas is typically a track that McLaren and Ferrari do insanely good at. Insanely godly, top tier shit good at. Same with Qatar, same with Abu Dhabi. Now, McLaren has had a lot of 1-2s this season. Ferrari has had a lot of 1-2s, 1-3s recently. And let's say, right, look at this, right? This is Qatar, but yeah, you look at Japan. Qatar. Oh, Qatar. What the fuck? Sorry. Okay. Anywho, if you look at Qatar, it's a 2-3. I expect Ferrari to potentially do this. So I think the main takeaways that we can sort of realistically speculate on the last 3 races is McLaren has a really good shot of taking the Constructors' Cup this year. Red Bull can't because it's only Max Verstappen. It's only the Max Verstappen show. And Sergio Perez has been absent from the show for way too long to do any sort of benefit. And even if he does, he's always in the lower end of points, which is nothing. It's 1 or 2. I expect them to stay at 3 unless something happens. Unless Ferrari double DNFs, which I don't see happening. Hopefully not. But can Ferrari catch up to McLaren? Yes. It will be difficult, but it is doable. Vegas is a track that Carlos has excelled at, Oscar has excelled at, Max has excelled at, Lando has excelled at, and Leclerc has excelled at. So you can never count out any of those 5. But either way, it's going to be close. This point gap will decrease, but slightly. I think Qatar will be interesting. Obviously, last year McLaren had a 2-3. It could be a 1-2, but so can Ferrari. Okay, no. Sao Pablo, no. Abu Dhabi. George Russell, what the? This is weird. This is weird. Okay, but Charles Leclerc, obviously P2. George Russell. Mercedes is not good this year. They are absolute dog water this year. Let's not even talk about that. But again, Ferrari and McLaren. This is still something McLaren can lose. I hope they do, because obviously Carlos Sainz is not going to be with Ferrari next year. He's going to Williams because Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari. So I hope Ferrari can get their shit together and, get the Constructors' Cup. I would love that for Carlos. Again, this is really close to call. It could swing in any way. This, as much as it pains me to admit, this is a stretch. This is not happening. I want it to happen, but it's not going to happen. But yeah, hold up. Is there an F1 point calculator? There has to be. Oh my god, yes. Okay. So these are the current standings. Let's add. Is this what is expected, or this is what happened last year? Yeah, this is what happened last year. Is this what happened? No. Okay. So this is what happened in Vegas last year. Um let's say, see, honestly, okay, this is updated. If we're being honest with ourselves this year, I am expecting something like this to really happen in Qatar, in Vegas. This is what I'm expecting to happen in Vegas. I expect. See, if I'm being realistic, I think something like this can happen or something like this can happen. Right? So let's assume this happens where Lando Norris takes the win, gets the fastest lap. Leclerc comes P2, Carlos Sainz comes P3, and Oscar Piastri comes P4. This gap is, how much is this gap now? It's like 403 minus 357.
403 minus 357 is 46.
Yeah, it's 46 points. And the Constructors' Cup, it's 50 points. No, it's 40 points. In Qatar, oh, it's doing it. Oh, it's doing it based on the constructor standings. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I I honestly thought that it was. I thought this was doing it based off of like what expected, but no, this is going off of what has happened. So the Qatar sprint race, see, McLaren has been doing really good in sprint races. Okay, let's just go with this. There's no fastest lap in this. There's no fastest lap. And then let's add Qatar race. So Qatar. Let's add Max, Lando, Piastri. Um, let's have Max Verstappen. Let's have Sainz there. I think this is a possible podium. Let's do Abu Dhabi. What happened in Abu Dhabi? Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi. Max Verstappen, Leclerc, and George. Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc. Again, George Russell is not going to be there. I'm expecting a Sainz or a. This is going. Actually, no. Let's do this. This is going under the assumption of like. This is what based off of what happened last year in these two races versus now. Again, the BRB. Okay, let's take these results based off of what happened last year. So we obviously had Max Verstappen win. Okay, so these are the results based off of. I'm only counting the top 4 to 5. So this is what happened last year, like around a So this is a simulation of the races go how they did last year, which will not happen this year. But let's go under this assumption. Let's say Max Verstappen takes P1, Carlos Sainz takes P2, Lando Norris takes P3. In the Qatar sprint race, Lando Norris wins it. We have a Piastri P2, Carlos Sainz, Max Verstappen P5. The Qatar race, Max Verstappen wins, Lando Norris takes P2, Carlos Sainz takes P3, Leclerc. Here, Charles Leclerc takes P2, Lando Norris takes P3, and Max Verstappen wins. And the fastest lap. Now, okay, so this is what happened last year. Similar to what happened last year, this would put the gap between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris at around 474 minus 388.
474 minus
86-point gap, which it seems like pretty close to what it is right now at 61 points. 687 minus 655.
687
and
minus 600.
McLaren would win by 32 points for a Ferrari, and Ferrari coming P2 in the constructors. Now, if we're being realistic with each other, or at least what I think will happen, let's look at Austin. I think Austin is a good telling. So Austin, Charles Leclerc won, Carlos Sainz came P2, Max Verstappen came P3, arguably P4, right? We look at Mexico. He had a 20-second penalty, but even without that 20-second penalty, he'd be like P4, right? He'd be P4. Now, we saw the Vegas track. I'm not going to open up again, but there's long straights. McLaren does really good there, so does Ferrari. The landscape from 2023 to 2024 is very different. Max Verstappen does not have the fastest car. He does not have a rocket ship. No car is close, was close in 23. This year, McLaren and Ferrari have much better cars, much equal cars to their. Okay, here's a better way of saying it. They have better cars than Red Bull. There's no doubt of that. Their car is better in Red Bull. Brazil is an outlier purely because it was a wet race, and Max Verstappen is the god of wet races. There's no doubt in that. So I would say Max Verstappen P5, and then it's between McLaren and Ferrari. I think this is the most likely result that is going to happen. Maybe P4. I think a podium, again, it'll be difficult. I think Charles Leclerc could take fastest lap. And I think, honestly, I think this could happen or this could happen. Let's just go with this. Okay? Um this is a simulation of Vegas. Let's first adjust everything based off of what most likely is to happen. If you look at here, this seems pretty good. Um if you go to Qatar, again, mm, I I honestly I see Sainz and Leclerc, or you could flip flop them. It really doesn't matter. None of them are in contention for the championship. None of them are going to win the championship. Max Verstappen. Let's just say this happens, right? I think this is something that is possible, and I think in this case, Charles Leclerc would take it, or Lando Norris could take it. It's not going to change. Oh, it might actually. I think this is something that can happen, and then it comes down to Qatar, Abu Dhabi. So the first three races, including this race, have been adjusted to what could happen. Like the most okay, yeah, that makes sense scenario of this race. 450 minus 485.
450 minus
Right,
485.
it's 35 points, and then here you have McLaren and Ferrari. I think this battle is going to be close. Abu Dhabi, if we do it like this. Ooh, okay. Yeah. I think for the Constructors' Cup, this is base case scenario. This is like what most likely will happen. Yeah. This is like base case what will happen, right? I think this either goes to Charles Leclerc or to Lando Norris. And this race will okay for the Constructors' Cup. This race is going to define who ends up winning the season for the Constructors' Cup and who does not. Now, yes, that makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense. Again, these are all cases where Lando Norris does not win. No, he wins the sprint race. Now, here is my thing. I think this is likely to happen. I think for Qatar, I honestly think having a Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri with a Charles Leclerc instead is likely to happen. And I think Abu Dhabi, I think Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris coming P3. I think this is a possibility that can happen. Oh, okay. So if you do that, the gap between them is pretty short, but still something possible. And then for Ferrari, you know what? Let's. This, sorry, this is getting very, 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 very interesting because this calculator is okay. Now, here's the thing. I don't Max Verstappen is not going to dominate this race like this. It's not a domination, but this is not happening this year. Red Bull is not that strong. I think full-heartedly, I think this is seeming like a result that can and will happen. Maybe this, or this, right? Let's go with a McLaren domination for these last few races, right? That's already there. Qatar, let's move. Where is Oscar Piastri is already on podium, and then if we go here, yeah, I think this is likely to happen. This is considering if McLaren can get their shit together and Norris wins one race, right? Now, here's the thing. Ferrari would still lose. What Ferrari needs is see, I'm conflicted. Like I want to have this be realistic and have this sort of be like, yeah, this is for sure gonna happen, bro. Like, yeah, bro. But if we look at Vegas 23, right, we see Oscar Piastri was P2 and Lando Norris obviously had a crash. I don't think that's gonna happen this year. Let's say Leclerc takes it, right? Honestly, no, I see this happening most likely, right? The sprint race. How does Qatar look like? What is a Qatar track? Qatar track. Qatar Grand Prix. Okay. Austin's kind of similar to this kind of. You have a lot of high speed corners, you have a good number of laps, you have a long straight. I think this is a race that Ferrari. I think this is a Ferrari looking like a Ferrari. Maybe not. I think, yeah, I think like a Ferrari 1-2. And then if you go to Qatar, right, the actual race itself, again, Lando Norris could win it. I think Leclerc is going to take fastest lap. I honestly think Sainz will do good here, but let's just leave this race. I think here, I it's gonna be very close. Ferrari is really gonna have to like put it. It's gonna have to be like a 1-2. Let's just say Ferrari gets every single 1-2, which is possible. Okay. Okay, this is the case. Ferrari gets a guaranteed 1-2. Right? Is it going to happen? No. But let's. Okay, this is a Ferrari 1-2 simulation. They keep getting 1-2s. Not gonna happen, but it's fun to look like. It's fun to look at, So let's do this. And let's do a Ferrari 1-2. Mm-hmm. All right. Even if we have a Ferrari 1-2 every single race, which is not going to happen, Ferrari would win this Constructors' Cup. However, if you have a if you have a McLaren 1-2, right? A McLaren 1-2, every single one, which is also not going to happen. But let's assume that it does. They're easily taking it. And this, again, very small point gap. Considering if Max Verstappen comes P5, which I think is likely for Austin here, I think this can happen. Here, I think, this is what happens. In this case, I expect I expect Lando. Right, let's just say Norris gets fastest lap each time. Unlikely, but even then, he would need Max Verstappen to come ooh, yeah. He would need Max Verstappen not to get points or okay, realistically, I expect one race to happen like this. Okay, now let's go to realistic scenario. I expect one race where Max Verstappen will come P6 or P7. Let's say P6, right? Let's say in the sprint race, it's a 1-2 lockout like this. I expect a Lando Norris win with something like this. No, something like this. Okay, I expect something like this. If you go to the actual race again, yeah, yeah, it becomes really close, and Norris would have to win every single race. Now, let me see what are the Las Vegas 2024 F1 predictions. That's the championship. But who's, yeah. Ooh, I need to check out that video. But yes, let's look at this, right? So, Singapore 24 standings. Ugh. I'm expecting, honestly, no. I'm expecting this to happen. Either this, I expect this to happen for Vegas. Um, yeah, this is something that is probable. I think the sprint race, I think Leclerc, I think this is more likely to happen here. And then let's say this one goes to Charles Leclerc. I think this is a pretty good guess, right? So I think this is the most likely probable result. I don't think Max Verstappen can win another race. I think McLaren and Ferrari have shown that they have far faster cars unless things go wrong. And the FIA doesn't do any meddling. Max Verstappen would need to, this is a race, Max Verstappen would need to DNF in one race. And he would need to get low points. Yeah, it's not looking good for, yeah, it's not looking good for us. It's not looking good for Lando Norris. I don't think he can win. But constructors, you know what? Let's do this. Let's have a. This is a McLaren 1-3. Let's have this be a Ferrari 1-2. Let's have this be. Let's have this then swing in Ferrari's favor, right? Again, most likely it's going to McLaren unless he screw it up. It's going to Max Verstappen unless he screws it up. So yeah, I think end result Max Verstappen's taking it, and maybe most likely it will be McLaren. If not, I think Verstappen has a really good chance of getting it. So we'll just have to wait and see. That is my championship predictions for the next few races, as well as hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the rest of the season, and the championship breakdown before we head into the final triple header of the 2024 season. Catch you on the next one.